Hi, Aoife, and thank you so much for being here with myself and all of our incredible listeners today. So, today we're going to focus on AAC at home and at school. And I know you have such a wealth of knowledge on AAC. And for any listeners that haven't met Aoife before, which I'd find very surprising if you haven't, Aoife has been a fantastic advocate on AAC for many, many years. This is going years back there. I remember long before, I suppose, we've obviously been using the AAC here in the home with gorgeous Connor since he was very small. But long before I saw it as a mainstay, would say lots of people talking about AAC on social. You were talking about AAC going back years. I remember asking you years and years and years ago about an AAC board, and you gave me so much incredible insight. This is going back many, many years ago. But I suppose sticking to the topic of AAC today in school and home, one of the questions that came in when I put out a question box is, what is robust AAC? And even as a parent and as a professional myself, I would see that a lot, and I'd be like, well, what specifically does it mean? So if you don't mind, for the listeners, whether professionals or parents or autistic people themselves, what in your view is actually robust AAC?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. It's an absolute honor to be on your podcast. I love listening to it, so I'm delighted to be here and talking about AAC, which is my favorite thing to talk about. But yeah, robust AAC is a term that's around a lot and kind of is used a lot in the context of AAC. And I suppose whenever I talk about AAC, I'm always referring to robust AAC, and that could be paper-based AAC or a device AAC. It doesn't matter. You're looking at kind of having a robust system. And what that means is that there's certain key components that that system will have that make it robust. So it means like it'll have things like core words, which are the words that we kind of use as adults all of the time. So things like go, stop, you have pronouns, you have some verbs, question words. So there's really frequently used words, which are usually on the home page. You have your fringe words or your personal words. So kind of, again, really specific topic words or words that are just really important to you as an individual. So it might be like your favorite music, people, places, toys, foods, whatever that is. Um, you also want the system to be able to grow with the individual. So you want it to have all the grammatical functions. That means you can also change verb tenses, use conjunctions, use full stops, basically make fully grammatical sentences as that individual progresses with their AAC journey or use. You also ideally want a keyboard with predictive text. So obviously literacy is so important and it's such a key component of AAC as well. Obviously, the more we can support an individual's literacy experience as well, that also supports their AAC and just suppose gives them wider access to more communication and to get more of their message across. So again, keyboard and predictive text, just obviously like ourselves with our, like when we're texting, it just makes things a lot easier if you can like have suggested words pop up. We also need to be able to personalize the device. So obviously this is meant to be that individual's voice. So it has to have the words that are important to it, whether they're phrases important to it, to them, words are important to them, maybe it could be like songs, clips that they like. It has to be reflective of what they would want to talk about and what's really important to them. So it has to be able to be personalized. So you need one that can kind of keep expanding and growing with them. And we also want to have lots of different communication functions as well. So obviously in the past, AAC was known for requesting and requesting alone. We obviously want individuals to be able to communicate for anything they want to. So that means protesting, giving their opinions, greetings, commenting on something, naming something, a multitude of reasons, saying they're sick, expressing feelings, and we need to make sure the system can accommodate all of those reasons as well. And also the system has loads of different word types, so you need to have like obviously question verbs, words, pronouns, verbs, nouns, adjectives. So a really kind of just full rounded system. But that's when we talk about robust, that's what we mean. I say there's lots of really great AZ systems that are all robust. And I say if you ever see me referencing them on my Instagram, I only ever talk about the ones that are robust because I don't bother with the other ones. So if you see any of them there, they're all robust, but there's lots of options there.
And can I ask you, just as you're saying it, I was thinking, gosh, you can also, I suppose, as a parent, as a professional, I can often see what even with my, limited eye in comparison to yourself as an AAC expert, you'll often see a lot of kind of misinformation about AAC, unfortunately, online, well-meaning, but misinformation. Just something
Yeah.
that just came into my head. I know it wasn't a question that I suppose has come in, but just occurred to me. There's no hierarchy when you're talking about those robust devices. Like, how do you view them, say, we'll say of all the different types of AAC, like TD Snap, I hear a lot of, but there's lots of different types.
There's
And like,
lots.
so if I'm a parent and someone, say if I go to a clinician or even just somebody is telling me TD Snap only, like, there's no hierarchy. It's what's suited to the
There's n-
individual, isn't
there's
it?
no hierarchy. It's absolutely an individual choice for the person using the AC device and also their family as well who are supporting them. Ideally, with any kind of robust AAC assessment, you'd be looking at a few different systems. You'd be trialing usually at least 3 different systems. You might be trialing different hardware too, which means maybe an iPad, maybe like a designated, like more kind of hardwaring device. But definitely be trying
It's
different
like
software
my
options.
gorgeous Max's device.
Exactly, yeah. And as I but you want to be looking at different options because they all have different layouts. They're all obviously all robust, but they all are slightly different, set up differently from a linguistic perspective. So absolutely, there's no one is better than the other. Once they're robust, I suppose like they're all equal and that they all offer different features, and I said they'll be the right fit for each
And is it
person.
ever a thing that, say, if I started off just in the context of using robust AAC,
Yeah.
say if I was a AAC user, or I suppose I am a parent of 2 AAC users, but say if I started off on Pro Local and then maybe you were supporting me as my family and then maybe it just wasn't working, would it be okay then to move from one to a different, or do those kind of things happen?
That definitely happens. It can happen for some individuals who, again, maybe use one AAC system for something and another AAC system for something else. I know one child that I work with uses, I think, 3 AAC systems. But also if you just find, say, maybe you picked one because I see you were kind of you weren't getting the support from choosing an AAC device, you were trying to do it yourself, which most parents are in that boat.
Kind of would have been like me way
Really,
back when we were starting out.
absolutely, it's really overwhelming. There's like you don't know where to go. There's lots to choose from. You're not sure which one's the right fit. And again, it feels really overwhelming without any support with the choosing and the setting up. So absolutely, there's no harm if you find you've been using something for a while and it's really not the right fit, of course you can try another system. But what I would say is usually most systems like we usually can kind of like can get them to work over time. I think it's often around again like how us feeling confident with our modeling and I suppose how much access that individual has to their AAC device can make a really big difference in terms of whether it's successful or not. But there's no like end point. It can always still be successful. It's just that
Yeah.
it might take a bit more time. But as I say, if you need to change the system, there's no problem
Don't feel like you
with
can't.
that.
Okay, so
Yeah.
then I suppose in the context of robust AAC, is there only a particular cohort of children, teens, and adults that should be using it? Or I suppose more specifically, who is it suitable for? Or is it only certain individuals that should be using robust AAC or no?
So I think for me, I think it often gets tied in with the fact that if the individual has to be non-speaking, but actually it's AAC is suitable for anyone who has unreliable access to mouth or spoken words, or is able to communicate all of their thoughts, wants, needs, ideas using mouth or spoken words. So they're the key principles I really hold on to because it's that unreliable access. Because I know lots of individuals who have access to mouth words sometimes, but then if they're dysregulated, they might lose access to their mouth words. And for me, when a child is their most vulnerable or a teenager or an adult, I want to make sure they definitely have access to some form of communication in those moments. And if mouth words are not reliable for them consistently when they're dysregulated, we need to have a system in place. Even if they can use their mouth words like 90% of the time, we need to make sure that they always have access to a robust system. And again, maybe we've have individuals who can communicate some ideas using their mouth words, but they've so much more to say, and their mouth words only take them so far. And that's where again a device is really important. So definitely, it's not for just non-speakers. As anyone who's unreliable access or who just can't get all of their thoughts, wants, feelings, needs, opinions out. AAC is what we need to be adding into that repertoire of communication supports.
That actually reminds me of Max because earlier today we have like this, it's not him, he's ran off it again. I have the box. I just want to show you so you'll see what I'm talking about. I got this in Smith's Toys a little while ago, probably a good 3 months ago. It's like Cosmic
Oh,
Lamp.
nice.
He loves it because it's a visual stim. But the reason I'm showing you this is it's related to his AAC. He's been using his AAC for especially around emotions. And he likes to watch all the lovely YouTube videos, and then he
Oh
kind
yeah,
of matches.
great.
It's really fabulous. I need to record it just to even show a clip, and he'll match it on his device. So something he was watching was saying, "I'm so sad," and then there was, "I'm so happy." Oh God, I'm trying to sing. I apologize to anyone listening. I forgot where I am. I forgot that I was on a podcast for a second. But basically, it has a little rhyme to it. But he'd been doing this through his device as
Yeah.
well. And then today, the reason I showed you this is just the box office, not obviously an ad for a Cosmic Lamp. But basically, he got the lamp part is like quite plasticky, or it's a thick plastic. But anyway, he must have decided it was a football, and he threw it. And I was like, oh my gosh, because it went through a window or he hurt himself, you know. So no, 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 you can't throw whatever. I said,
Yeah.
Mammy's to take it now for a while, and you know. And then he just went, same as his device had been showing him how to say these words. He just went, "I'm so sad." I won't try and sing that one now, but I just went. It was the same intonation. It was just from the show, but I can remember
Perfect.
him using the device to teach himself what he was watching and listening to. So that's why when I think of AAC, like it just helps in all realms. And I suppose a question that a parent would have asked me, I suppose in the not so distant past when my gorgeous Connor started so my eldest son is an AAC user and my youngest son is an AAC user. And just like you say there, it's not just for people that don't use mouth words to speak, which would have been my eldest son. My youngest son, Max, for example, is a GLP, a Gestalt Language Processor. But I suppose the purpose of what I'm saying is that a parent said to me, were you never afraid though, that if you were using the AAC this long with Connor, that he wouldn't eventually use mouth words or wouldn't eventually use, say, say, if you don't know what mouth words are, another way of saying this might be spoken language through your mouth. So
Yeah.
would that be a fear, would say, that maybe school or home have when you're supporting? And I suppose what is the answer then to that question from your kind of expert view?
I think, yeah, you're absolutely right, Amanda. It's definitely like a myth or a fear that comes up still for parents and teachers. And you can understand it because there really was kind of very inaccurate research around for quite a long time. Not even research, just these misconceptions that people held around AAC. But I suppose all of the research has shown us again and again that access to AAC will only support access and use of mouth words or spoken words if they're available to that individual. So I get the same question all the time, oh God, will it stop them using mouth words? They're using some mouth words, I don't want them to not use them anymore. If they have access to those mouth words, that is the quickest and easiest way for them to communicate. So if they can access them, if they're readily available for them, again, based on their motor planning, regulation, all of those things, it's the quickest and fastest way for them to communicate that message. So if they can do it that way, they're going to do it that way. But if they can't consistently or reliably do that, then we need AAC. But again, all the research just keeps showing us that if a child has access to AAC and has been modeled on AAC a lot, often what happens is they do have an increase in mouth words or spoken words. It's not our aim, but it often is a kind of a nice added bonus for children who do kind of maybe get more words they can say using mouth words. Because like what you were saying with Max, they can hear it, they can like hear that motor plan of that word, they're hearing the same production again and again, and it can really help with the, I suppose, like oral production of it too. So it's definitely, I would say, really important to know that like it's not going to stop, it's only going to help. And I suppose it's really important to remember that we're all multimodal communicators. Like just because you and I can text doesn't mean that we don't ever talk, or we only
Mhm.
text, or that we can just call. We all use different modes of communication and we always use the one that makes the most sense for us in that moment and is easiest for us in that moment. So that's the same with AAC. It's just like what mode can they use in that moment that to get their
What
message
takes the
across?
pressure off, would it be?
Absolutely. What allows them to communicate like most of their
Easily.
message, not just like a tiny part. They might be doing mouth words. They maybe can give you so much more using AAC because they've more access to it. It's not as reliant on their regulation or other kind of their body and how their body's reacting, with motor planning and things like that.
I noticed with Connor, especially so Connor started in a absolutely incredible autism class this past September, and school were incredible about collaborating and really focused on the AAC. We focused on the AAC at home, and what we noticed, and I think I would have shared this on social, is that by December, a child that kind of had been hesitant to even kind of try to, and again, it wasn't that that was the goal. The goal was to support him
Of
in
course,
all the ways that he
communication.
wanted to
Yeah.
communicate, in all the ways. Like there wasn't like we're only focusing for this. It was in all the ways. But he actually tried to speak at school, and then he was trying to speak at home. And then I remember his first words were, I think was it yes and then no one evening where this is like a sad story, but it was actually with a vomit bug in the house. And I was saying, is Connor sick? Or, I was saying something about feeling ill. And he just went, no. And I just went, and Haley was like, did he just? And Haley was like, wait to get the phone. Because we're just, you have to, it sounds really silly as a parent, but like I felt like, what if we don't hear it again? And it had been so long.
Oh no,
And then the next thing he just goes, yeah, yeah, yes. It was like a yes with a TH, like a yes. And then it was no. And then we were like, wow, that he still wasn't feeling great because he'd had a bug. And he was like, please let me go to bed. But what we noticed since though was that because school and home were collaborating, there was no pressure on school, no pressure on home, but everyone was modeling like school, like they have like, they do actually use TD Snap, and Connor has TD Snap as well as it happens, but they had it up on the board. It was part of the everyday activities. They have another wonderful child in the class that uses love. So they're all learning love as well. So
great.
it's like AAC
Total
heaven.
communication.
Yeah,
Exactly what you want.
multimodal,
Yeah.
everyone's communicating the way that they, but everyone is learning about everyone's way of communicating. It's heaven. But I suppose my point of that is,
Amazing.
as a parent, yeah, it is like, it's like, as you say, not that I'm going to attempt to speak French, but say if I suddenly decided that's the only one way that I could speak, but then you don't understand the way that I'm speaking, or vice versa, then we're not going to get our messaging and whatnot. And the pressure will then be on, because we'll go to other forms to try. So that's why, as you say, it's really important that we accept all forms, but that AAC will not stop communication developing, if there's capacity there, or whatever, sorry, or whatever the reason is for that to develop. A question just occurred to me now. So say if I'm a parent and I've primarily been using, say, you see all of these different types of AAC boards, or
Yeah.
printables online. Like, is there a particular type you should go towards, or is that too vague of a question? Like, or say, should they be using those standalone, or should they also be using them with the robust, with the device as well? Is
So
there a reason?
I think ideally you'd always have like the paper-based boards are fantastic and they can be really good like on the fly or for certain like topics or maybe like with a book or an activity in school or a thing that your child likes to do at home.
But the
Where
robust is so
yeah, boards are
expansive, isn't
great,
it?
but kind of we need to look at like that complete communication profile. And I think the boards by themselves, because obviously you only have capacity for so many like
Yeah.
items on
What's
a
on the board?
page.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what we need is like they're brilliant, but kind of we don't want them to be standalone. We want the child has
Like
access to be
situational in an
robust.
activity is useful.
Fantastic, yeah. But we also want to
Yeah.
have, let's say, a robust aid system. And that could be a paper-based communication book. It doesn't have to be an iPad. That
Yeah.
tends to be or a designated device. But the preference usually like often is high tech. But I'd say paper-based is a really robust. If you have a good paper-based system, that's fantastic. But the boards by themselves, brilliant and a great part of that, like we look at like the communication toolkit and what's that child have available to them. And it's a great tool in that toolkit. But standalone, one board's not going to give them enough to
No.
communicate.
So you could use it, say, if you're thinking about which should I use, really the goal would be that they'd have robust, so they have capacity to communicate in a
Yeah,
multimodal way. But if you're saying, oh, we've only been using it, say, like a communication board for toileting, like
yeah.
you can see how that's very situational and
But
more
when
difficult to transfer to, say, if you're going bowling. Like, it's very obvious why the board would need to
yeah,
be
exactly.
different.
The vocabulary will only take you so far. But as I but
Yeah.
definitely we want like if you're using robust, use the boards as well. Always
To
advocate for parents like
supplement.
have paper-based resources around your house, like have the boards in different areas so you always have access to AAC no matter where you are. So they're great. Just also have I suppose a robust system to supplement
Yeah.
as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, sorry, that was just a question that occurred to me.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I suppose, would you then have, I suppose, and in my view, an absolute expert in this area, would you have top tips, say, for school and home to kind of really support AAC use and maybe, I suppose, building confidence as well in the student, in the child as well? Because I know for Connor, he'd moved from one school to the school he's in this last year,
Yeah.
and there was a lot, I would say, a lot of hesitancy to kind of really engage with the AAC for a number of reasons from
Yeah.
kind of past experiences unrelated to home. But he's really like, once he was like really confident in the school environment, home environment, he's just, that word, I love that word, flourished. He's really just flourished. And like
Yeah.
he was saying earlier, like his favorite thing is he looks at me like with a little kind of twinkle in his eye and he'll go, Coke. And I'll be like, Coke, Connor. And because he obviously he's not allowed to have lots of Cokes, it wouldn't be good for him. But he just if he sees me coming, he'll come out of it like he's a pure teen in his bedroom, listen to it. He loves
Hello.
Oasis.
Yeah.
And he'll come out and he'll just look at me and go, Coke. And I'd be like, yeah, Connor, Coke. So, but again, that's with school and home supporting. But so
Yeah.
in your view, then, as far as say, what would be top tips? Say, if I'm a professional or a parent listening to the pod, what do you think
Yeah.
would be really helpful for them to know?
I think the first one, kind of like you said earlier on, is in like I often say to parents, like getting a communication device or to school does not mean that that's a communication system for your child yet or your student yet. So for them, it's just like pages with lots of buttons on them. So like if you were given a book on how to speak Japanese and put in a plane to Japan, you couldn't suddenly just speak Japanese because you had a Japanese book. You'd be like, I don't know how to use this, what to say, how to pronounce things exactly. So it's the same thing with the device. So you and your child, or you're as a teacher and your student, you're all learning a new language. So I think the first thing I would say is like you need to be patient with yourself and you need to be patient with the child you're working with because they're learning a new language. It's all new. You only get better by using like by practicing it and by using it. But it takes time. So I think that's always like just like take a breather. Because I think often parents especially are so excited by the time a child gets a device. They might have been waiting a really long time trying to fund one themselves. And it can be such a struggle to get one. And it's almost we always think, okay, we've got it now, we're ready to go, and then it's like the child doesn't use it, and everyone's kind of almost instantly disappointed. And think, well, that's so understandable, but it doesn't. We have to have a chance to practice it before we can use it. So first of all, it's think patience with both yourself and your child or your student. And then definitely, I suppose, we need to make sure we're providing access all of the time. So you need to see this as an extension of your child or your student. So I always like, if you see like so and so, can you see their device? You have to be constantly thinking, isn't like, is it around? Is it available to them? And at the start, like when the child is starting to use their AAC, or maybe they haven't started using it yet, but we have it for them, they often, because they haven't taken ownership yet, they're not going to move that device around with them. So if you're at school or at home, the adults, you can have to take ownership of moving the device with the child to make sure they have access wherever they go. Over time, the child will take that ownership and they will then be responsible and move it themselves. But at the start, as adults, we are often responsible for that moving of the device to make sure it is available. And I often say to teachers or to parents as well, like, put post-it notes in the back of your door. Like, say, like, do we have a device? Like, don't leave the house without it. Don't leave the classroom without
You know the way
it.
you say to like, so I'm just thinking practically. So I smiled when you were saying that is the device always with him. Every time I see a photo of Connor in his school, he's literally always holding his device, and it just makes
Amazing.
my heart like leap.
Oh, it's the
But say if
best.
I'm a parent and I've a gorgeous young person, I'm trying to support them, and I'm trying to do the modeling. But say, and this would have definitely, hands totally up for this. We would have had like a corner in the kitchen where the speech device was always left. Now that was primarily because Connor has a little brother Max who, when he was small, every device was Max's, or in his mind it was, and he'd be trying to download. He'd be able to download apps I
Everything.
wouldn't have even heard of. Yeah, so we had to be like, that's Connor's choker, no touching, only for Connor. But say if I'm a parent now and I want to make sure, say Connor brings it with him everywhere, do I like hand it to him and say, I know this is very specific to each child, but would
I
say
know.
general rule of thumb, and this again, if you're listening, it's always very unique to each person. But would say generally, what would a good strategy, what would be good practice in your view, if I had a child that isn't interested in bringing it with them specifically? What would
Yeah, so I
kind of
think if
good
they haven't
practice
taken
be?
ownership of the device yet, again, they don't see it as their voice yet. So like they're not going to take it with them yet because they're like, but this isn't, there's nothing to do with me. So
Yeah,
I'm not gonna, so I often say get a strap first and foremost,
good
get
idea.
a device with a strap, a case with a strap. You can get them really cheaply, like on Amazon. So it's not that it has to be a very costly affair. And then it is, you just carry it with you. So like if you're out and about, if your child doesn't want it, again, we want this to be as positive as possible for your
Mm,
child or student. So we're not going to force them to hold it. If they're
no,
going to, they're saying they don't want to hold it, we're not going to say, oh no, you have to hold it, it's your device. We might then wear it ourselves, wear it facing outwards so that they can at least see it and they can see it. The idea is that we want them to know this is a communication system that's always available to you. So has to be available for them to kind of start to build trust in it as well. That, okay, this is, oh, I'm always looking for it, it's always there. Whether if it's maybe not available in school or only available sometimes, or if we kind of maybe always leave the house without it, that's not building trust for that child in the device. Because like you said with Connor, it takes a while to build the confidence to like to try something
and even with
different.
it, and for some children, maybe wearing the strap, because the reason I was saying this is because Connor has, so he has an actual, this is Max's, but Connor has one of these, but his old device was on an actual iPad that he also preferred, and I didn't want to move him directly off what he was always known, which is iPads, to a fabulous, robust, really
Yeah,
strong device. So we've in between the two, but I go with whichever he's choosing is the right
absolutely.
one because it's his choice. But I
Yes.
remember I got the strap, this kind of, it was a really good, hard, as you say, very inexpensive case for, so we got him a new iPad because the old one died out. So we couldn't get the same model of a cover because it was years old, the other one.
Yeah.
But the new one is blue. And I put a strap on, I think, oh, this is great. This is a great strap, so convenient. He immediately kept taking it off, kept taking it off. And I was like, he's telling me no, take off the strap. And he now, as if you see any photos that I post from when he's with his fabulous school, he just holds it in his hand. And I'm like, fair enough. That's what he wants to do. It's not for me to say this is
Oh
the
no,
way. It's not. It's just whatever. But as you say, his autonomy is central in what we're trying to do to
absolutely.
support him.
It's his voice, especially once the child takes ownership of it. It's like whatever way they choose to use that device or carry it or hold it or have it available, it is their choice. So
100%
that's absolutely really important. But I think it's more for adults at the start, it can be really helpful when they're not
to
having
show.
like having that ownership and we are moving it a lot. If like, especially if you're in a school, for example, and you've got maybe you're taking like four children outside, having one hand to hold the device isn't really practical. But if you can wear it and then have it available when they're in the yard because it's facing outward, that's going to be much more practical
That reminds
access.
me again of this device. So when Max got his speech device, we'll say he had primarily only ever seen his brother Connor with the speech device. And he would say, no, Connor's, no, that's Connor's. And I would say, oh, oh, it's Max's. So just like you were saying, so say kind of veering off the topic then, would another tip be around if I'm trying to support my child to see that this can be a fun, engaging device? So one of the things that we would have done was downloaded, say, you know, the way you can add clips, and so Max is also, as it happens, using TD Snap. We have like videos of like his favorite clips, like
Yeah.
one is Masha and the bear and all these things. So once he started to see this was his personal,
Yeah.
really fun thing, and again, his school were great. They like personalized it. He has his own school folders on there as well. So is there any top tips, say, around that? Say if now the child seems to be taking ownership or maybe is taking ownership,
Yeah.
but I'm still trying to get them to actually want to engage with it. Should I be saying, you know, oh sorry, also
Personalized.
in our house we call the speech device talkers. I don't know why we just always have.
Yeah.
So if it's a speech device or a talker, if I'm now saying starting all over again, never saw an iPad or a speech device before, and I'm like, how do I actually get, this is a question that would come to me a lot on social. I would say highly recommend going to Aoife Tierney, expert in AAC, and asking her this question. Because I can give an opinion, but you really want the expert to give the advice. So I suppose if I have a child, I've got the AAC device now, I'm doing my best, I'm modeling,
Yeah.
but little Amanda won't use the device. Is there any top tip there for school or home if you have a student or a child at home that you're trying to support to engage with the device?
I think exactly like you said. I think we want to focus on connection and joy. Like that is with AAC, that's the most important thing. If you either if you have had buy-in from the child yet or not, that's the way it's going to happen. So if we're only using it for either like only for work related tasks in school or only for routines at home or when you're giving instructions, it's not really of any like you're not focusing on that connection piece with your child or with your student. So the idea is that if we can add in things that are really important, again, this is your child's voice or going to be part of their voice or one of their voices. So it has to have things on it that they want to talk about. So I think often people are focused on, I want them to request a certain item. I think kids are usually really good, or teenagers or adults, at requesting what they need using other communication methods that are faster. So focus on what brings them joy. So what makes them really happy? What songs they love, like Max, like what clips did he love to watch? Who does he love to go and see? Who are his favorite people? What are his favorite places? Like what? Yeah,
There
like
was a thing I did with Max, his daddy would say like kind of funny that I wouldn't even know where they're from. Something Max had heard somewhere, and if daddy says it, funniest thing that ever was ever heard. So he would have recorded his voice onto it as well, and then we'd be playing it, and Max would be like, "Oh my
perfect.
God, does it say? Oh, I'm just going to press this." So it was kind of that.
Yeah,
Or for Connor, I don't know if this is, you know, this is, I'm sure it's not just us that ever thought to do this for myself, but like family kind of, every family has their own like in-house like jokes or in-house funny
absolutely.
things that we say, or maybe they don't, maybe just this autistic house here,
No, no.
but but like we would have put those on Connor's device. So I don't know if he'd like to say them or he wouldn't, but they would be there like as, you know, mini phrases from if he'd like to. It's like just funny. I won't even mention anything because they're just probably not funny to anyone, but things we would say here in the house. And
Yeah,
then we would put them on and Connor would look at me like, oh, I could say it too if I'd
yeah,
like to, but it's there. So if I was saying it, I might press it as well and be like, oh, you know, and he'd be like, oh, great. Or he's probably like, God, I'm a teenager. Why am I listening to this middle-aged mom of mine? But it was just giving him the same opportunities if he would like to.
exactly.
But I'm not asking him to come over and press the button. It's if he would like to, it's there.
It's just like giving them, yeah, giving the options, that connection and joy. And as you say, like that's such a lovely example of communicating for different functions. So like
Yeah.
move away from the question, like sharing a joke. Like kids love to share jokes in different ways and talk about different things that are really funny. If you have younger kids, they tend to love to talk about like poo and things like that. So like I was like, put that stuff in the device. Like I'm like, oh my God, why am I writing? Like if that's what your child is interested in, that's what brings them joy, it makes them laugh, they find funny, add it in. It doesn't have to be like correct. It's like what's perfect for them, or what's going to make them happy, and what's going to make them want what do they want to tell you about, and then make sure it's on it. So that's definitely the best way to
We
get
actually had,
buy-in.
I'd say we as if I'm the royal queen, but I had the incredible Roseanne McQuinlan
Oh,
on the podcast only
fantastic.
a few weeks ago. She gave a fabulous example of her gorgeous son speaking outside Woody's, like, and how they just like incidentally he was communicating, and she was just, oh my God, I shared it as a clip on my social. It was just the most
I
fabulous. I
thought
get
it was,
goosebumps even saying it now. It
yeah,
was just like, I was like, if that's not a perfect example of why as a family we should all be embracing AAC as a culture, but not as a culture, but as a way to support our children, but also as a meaningful way for us all to communicate, but have it as part,
yeah.
intrinsically part of our family culture. And actually, Roseanne sent me these for the boys. I must share these on my social. Look, so it's like
I,
Aren't
They're
they just
so cool. I
fabulous?
saw them. I bought the containers to make my own ones. I saw them on her. I was like, oh, they're
Oh.
so great. I have to have them.
Aren't they just amazing? So I still have to get around to it, but I want to share it on my social because Max has been like, well, he's been using them total transparent as a weapon once or twice. We got a whack in the head by accident, he's swinging them, but he actually has his, he loves his teddies. He keeps a lot of them in here, but he has them using them with him when he is playing on his device.
So
He'll see
nice.
like Cookie Monster is a fan favorite here. Cookie Monster will have his as well. And I just think, what an incredible lady, first of all, to think to make these, but
Oh,
also again, making it part of the family fabric that this is totally natural to
yeah.
see AAC device with our toys in our play, in our home, and that you're not just feeling like, oh, it's only, as Max initially said, oh no, Connor, that's
No, it's
Connor's. We're like,
everyone.
it's everyone's. Yeah,
Yeah.
fabulous. So I
And
suppose, go on, sorry. Oh, go on.
I think definitely, I mean, yeah, Rosanna's absolutely incredible woman.
Oh, amazing.
But she's such a great example of, as I said, that whole family involvement in AAC. And as you
Incredible
said,
human.
for I suppose for all the kids I've seen like the most success with, it's where everyone gets involved. And it's, as I say, it's part of like the integral family structure. And like I say, it's another way that everyone in the family communicates. That's where it's so successful. Again, that like that individual who's using the AC device themselves just feels like, oh, this is like I'm part of the
I'm
family.
part
This
of the
is part
family.
of the family. This is another way we can all communicate. It's not just like, oh, that's that one child using the AC. It's like I say we're all as a family embracing different ways of communication, accepting all modalities and using them ourselves. And it's so powerful when you see that happening. And I say it's
Do you know what I just thought of there? When Max started using the speech device, so Connor would definitely have a massive spot, a soft spot for Max. So Connor's my eldest boy, Max is my youngest. And Max, for anyone listening, also is Arfit, so he's kind of particularly small for his age. So he looks much younger than what he is. But anyway, moral of the story, when Connor started to see Max use a speech device as well, he had like a little twinkle in his eye of like, no offense to Jack or Haley, but I'd say Max is Connor's most favorite person. Oh, outside of myself, I'm only joking. But I'd say of the siblings, because Max is just so soft and gentle and all the things. But when he started seeing Max using AAC as well, you could literally see like literally sparkle of like,
yeah,
oh my God, you're like me. We all use like you
yeah.
could I could literally see it in him that he got a
It's
little
magical,
like
I think.
yeah. And then Max would say in his device because I think he thought it was a game, but Connor was like so touching. He was like, "Love you, Connor." Calls him Connor. He records voice. He goes, "Love you, Connor," and then Connor would be like, like big smile on his, as I say, on his 6 foot tall frame now. But yeah, it was very special, as you would say. It's really lovely. So I
Yeah.
suppose then, is there any other tips do you think that would be like important for school or home to know? So I know we could stay here all night giving tips, but
Yeah.
is there say one or two more or three more that you think would be really important?
They definitely presuming competence is another really important one. I think especially for individuals who either are non-speaking or minimally speaking or have unreliable speech. Unfortunately, there's definitely this narrative around that if an individual is non-speaking or minimal speaking, that they are lacking in intelligence or don't understand what's been said around them or like don't know how to communicate, which all couldn't be further from the truth. And I think it's just often when the AEC is involved, like, would they be able to manage it? Or, do you know, maybe to give them a couple of, maybe give them like a small grid to start with, or maybe only a couple of buttons, you know, and see how they get on. I think it's just, we need to know that that individual is capable of learning, is understands what's going on around them, is capable of understanding new things and learning new things. And I think there's, for me, one of the stories that stands out the most in my practice, which of presuming competence. I had a young child I worked with who came to me with an AAC device they'd been given, and they had 4 buttons on the page when they came to me, and there was like yes, no, I think more, and stop, I think was it, and the child wasn't using the device, and I was like, oh, he was on speaking at the time, and they're like, oh, he's just not able to manage it, like he's not using it at all, and the narrative from school and the kind of other healthcare professionals being like, he's just not able. We have to stick with these 4 buttons until he's able to show competence with it. And I was like, I no, let's not do that. Let's just go for the 8 by 10 grid. It was CD Snap that he was using as well. And we'll just give him all the buttons and we'll just see what happens. Like, as in, nothing's happening at the moment. So let's go for it all. And like within, I don't know, like a couple of months, he was using the device for so many different reasons. He then also showed us that he was also hyperlexic and was able to type and read. And he also could do like long multiplication sums that I can't do. He shows us the device. It was just, for me, it was such a
Amazing.
clear example of, because he was not speaking, because he was, of course, he was bored out of his tree with 4 buttons. Like, who can say what they
Mm.
want to say with 4 words? And once he was given access to all of it, and again, it was modeled, and his family were fantastic. They were modeling, and like giving him lots of opportunities, and like just seeing also him like when he was able to express himself, just like how happy he was, and like just you could see his whole like all his personality come out. He had such a great sense of humor, and I feel like before, because he wasn't being understood, we weren't getting to see all of that. And so he was like, once he had that outlet, it was like we got to see all of him. And I think for me, it was just it's the most resounding, like just always presume competence. Like you don't know, and it's the least dangerous assumption. If you like do, you can't go wrong by presuming someone could do something. Obviously, we still might scaffold them and support them and model and all those things, but everybody can learn new things, and that's the most important thing when it comes to AAC, I think.
And we need everyone to believe in the child, school, home, grannies,
Everyone.
granddads, aunts, uncles, and for
Yeah.
nobody to, and I think that, and I say this, and it's not that anyone intentionally was not being great about it, but I think because we would have been, say, when we were using AAC, Connor is 15 now, so nearly 16. So he was maybe 5, 6, it's 10 years ago. And this was way back when I didn't fully understand AAC myself. There wasn't like incredible
Was
people like yourself, or if there were, I didn't know, you know.
lovely.
And I remember there was lots of, and I don't mean grannies or grandads, but different people be like, oh, if you use that, sure, he'll never talk. Or they talk about Connor in front of Connor in a
Yeah,
really non-positive way. And I'd be very specific that we were always talking like strengths-based, very positive,
absolutely.
because Connor at that time was primarily, I would say, non-speaking and was learning to use AC. There was an old model of communication system back in those days, PECs, that he was using. He
Yeah,
wasn't really, shockingly, non-shockingly, now we know more about PECs, but like wasn't really progressing in any positive way. It was just kind of, I want biscuits or whatever. And I remember one day, I won't say who, somebody was in the house and they'd said something, and it wasn't really negative, but it was like, ah, sure, he'll never be able to something. And he burst out crying. And I
oh,
just said to the person, can I just talk to you aside for a second? And again, they would have been like someone I know very well. I said, please just know that if you ever come into the house again, and if you ever speak in a negative way about Connor again, that'll be the end of ourselves,
yeah,
speaking to you personally, but also ever coming into the house, because he will now have heard what you said. He's now crying. Now, obviously, my husband was there, was comforting him, but I said, you cannot do that. My child is as capable of any child. But by you
absolutely.
doing that now, he's also autistic, so he could be ruminating on, hyper focusing on what you've said, and that could then affect his own inner capacity and understanding and belief systems that he can
Yeah,
do and achieve all that he can achieve. And I said it kind of the night he literally said, or sorry, at school, they just so love, oh my God, they're fabulous. His teacher, Deirdre, and all the incredible teachers, Tina and other. They had recorded them where he had just said, it was around the time of my birthday back in May. He literally said his first sentence that I've ever heard him say was "Happy birthday, Mom." I kind of nearly fell off the chair. But I was saying to myself, if that's not an example of a child that around December said yes and no, and by May was saying "Happy birthday, Mom." Now, hands totally up. That's school, like they're just powerhouses, between the SNAs, the principal, vice principal, teachers, everybody together. But if anyone was to say, like that lady that was in the house that day,
yeah,
I'd love to, I don't know where they are in the world, like it's not a relative, but I would like to say, like, if you were to see
yeah.
my son now, you would say, oh God, I'm so ashamed for what I said. Maybe they're ashamed immediately, I don't know, but it was just a really unkind thing. But I think would you think, is that a powerful message that if school are doing great or home are doing great, so do all of the surrounding individuals. It's kind of that, I have a
So
poster there,
important.
Luke Beard, behind my computer, autism plus the environment. So AAC plus the environment equals the outcome. It's that piece of everybody, atmosphere, perspectives, intentions. It's everything has to be pro the device, pro the
Yeah.
person being really competent and really capable.
I know that's just like how you're talking about it. Like, if you're saying like, oh God, like, if that child is on speaking and you have adults in their environment saying, oh,
Yeah.
sure, they'll never use it anyway, and you're like, oh God, like it's extra work,
That
and
just kill
also,
your morale as a human
yeah,
being,
like
wouldn't it?
if you're, it's not going to fill you with confidence as an individual, and you're also trying to learn a new skill. If adults aren't just saying like, oh God, it's just like another day of work, and oh, I can't be bothered, or oh, do you know, well, sure, they'll never use it anyway, or it's like it's the how we speak about AAC is so important. Obviously, how we feel about
and
the
and the
individual.
importance that we put on it. Because I can give you an example, and I'm not trying to shame anyone, because I'm sure I've hopped in the car and forgot it. I remember one day my husband was bringing the kids back to Granny's, and I saw the device on the counter, and I was like, "You forgot Connor's device." Now Granny lives a good bit away from where he was like, "Oh well, look, I'm here now," and I'd be like, "No bother," and I just didn't want him to think I wasn't trying to have a tiff about it, but I was like, "Child needs speech device," so I said to Haley, "I'm going in the car. I'll be back shortly," and I just drove over and gave Connor a speech device, because I was saying this is now years ago, but I was like, "This is his device," because when he doesn't have it, it's like doing this,
Absolutely.
and you cut off the world from him, and you cut him off from the world.
Yeah.
So, and he was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, no, I'm not trying to row, but it just, this has to be with him in the
Yeah.
same way. I'm not asking you not to speak when you come to Granny's. He has to have every
Yeah.
opportunity all the time. And then I suppose I unintentionally rattled or frightened my husband, because I turned up out of the blue with a speech device. But the point was that I had to say it has to be. And again, I'm no saint. I've often landed into Castlebar Town with Connor and went, forgot the speech device. But then if I, for whatever reason, had an appointment, I couldn't go straight back, I would say, Connor, I am so sorry, I forgot your speech device. But again, because I have, it's overcharging, I could download, the way on TD Snap, you can download
Yeah.
now it wouldn't be obviously as ideal as a speech device, but I can
But it's an
download it.
option.
It's a
Yeah.
profile. I can download it onto so he has a version of it. But I do feel so, as a parent, I'd be like, oh my God, why? I'm such a fail. Like, I've just failed that there. I should have, but you can only, I suppose, for parents that feel like maybe or even teachers that are trying their best and parents trying their best. Like, if there are moments where you feel like, things aren't going well, is there any kind of tip there around if you feel like you're at a standstill? Even, I know that would come up a lot as well for school and home.
Yeah.
Is there any tip around that you could think would be useful?
I think when you're at a stance, and it does happen, I think, especially like we're saying at the start, after you get a new device, it can feel like you're just ready to go and then like nothing kind of consumer happens. I think individuals in AAC journeys can take a really long time. Obviously, they have to be exposed to lots of language to learn it. And I suppose if you think about maybe like mouth words or like a child who is maybe using spoken words their primary form of communication, like they hear words their whole first year of life. Like every second of every day, usually, apart from when they're sleeping, somebody is talking to them, around them, using their mode of communication. And again, it takes them an entire year to start to use single words. So to put in the context of AAC, an individual with AAC also has to hear and see the device being used, like their mode of communication, all the time to help them to learn how to use it as well. So I think it's, again, even if you feel like you're at a standstill, I think often parents saying, "Oh God, I'm using the device, I'm modeling, but they're not looking at me, or they're looking away, or they're moving away." Don't let that put you off, is what I'd say, because I know definitely, obviously, for different autistic individual, how they show attention can look different as well,
Mhm.
and also obviously like with eye contact and things like that as well, it can just present differently. So don't presume that your child is not paying attention just because they're not looking at you or your device, because the amount of times children I've worked with have been seen they're paying no attention, and then like they do something like that only would have happened if they were paying attention all the time, where we thought like it looked like they were like couldn't be bothered with what we were doing. So keep on modeling, really focus on what they love, focus on what brings them joy. Like you're gonna know your child best. Or if you're a teacher, link in with the parent. What's important to that child? How can you bring it into the classroom? And how can you model and talk about things that bring them joy? And like I promise you it will work. But it can take time. So I think it was just keep on swimming and just like keep going with it, even when it feels like you're maybe not getting anywhere.
That feedback that you're looking for almost immediately, it takes time. In the same
It
way,
takes
a
time.
baby babbling, and I'm not suggesting an adult using AAC is equivalent, but from the language or the capacity to use that device, you have to give them time to learn. And you have to
Yeah.
give yourself time to learn, because as an adult, me talking and doing the motherese, the baby babble, and trying to
Yeah.
support my child to develop, spoken language or whatever. I have to do the same almost with the AAC device, if that makes sense. And that's where I suppose a question, maybe unrelated, but maybe part of a tip would be, if you have a child that might like to stim off the device or might only like to go to certain parts of it. So I remember, I don't know if I take it as a positive or maybe just Connor happened to like the word. Connor used to press elephant when I'd come along, and I'd be like, "You're not wrong, Connie," but he used to like press elephant, and rhinoceros was another one, and I'd be like, "Are these, is he communicating something, or is this a stim?" I'm not sure, but if you have a child that likes to potentially maybe play off the device, but you're thinking they should be like, if I'm a parent or a teacher, and I'm like, oh, well, they should be using it now to answer these questions or to do whatever. But I'm in the corner, say if it's me going elephant, rhino, I know another lovely family I worked with in the past, they had a gorgeous pudding that would literally name out all the animals that they had in the folder, which is absolutely fabulous. But say, is that, I don't say right or wrong, is that, what should families do? Should they be viewing that as a positive? So I know how I'd view it personally, and I would be like, that's a great thing. But if I'm a family and I'm unsure, how should they view that? And then if their goal is that the child would use it communicatively only, which I don't think is the goal with communication. We all use language. Like I attempt to sing, as you heard earlier in the podcast, we all use our voices in different ways. When I
Yeah.
sing, maybe it's not a positive. But what should families that might be viewing that, and not that they view the child negatively, but they're unsure. They're like,
Yeah.
will this help the communication or not help the communication, if that makes sense?
It'll definitely help, but I suppose like when you're learning a language, you have to have a chance to explore and like enjoy the system as well. So that child could be using it because they like the sound of that word and it brings them joy and it's a happy stim. They also could be using it 'cause it could be part of a gestalt that they have heard.
Yes.
It's really important. Someone just hasn't made like connect the dots with yet, but it has relevance that moment. And actually, we just don't understand the relevance yet, but there is relevance there. They also could just be like learning different words in their system. I know I had a child who just they went into every single folder and like pressed every single button like multiple times. But then had like kind of a photograph memory of a really great visual learner, and he now knows where exactly where every single word in that device is, and he can like, and if anything's got moved, he knows exactly where it was before and where it is now. So again, we don't like everyone learns in different ways as well. So I think embrace all use of AAC as good. It's all part of that experience of how they're learning that language, and as they just, I think for that child to feel like that language is validated, either repeat it back if you have a separate second device, model that language back on that device, take your cue from that child, see how they respond. But I think for them to feel like their voice is being acknowledged and heard is the most important thing. So, like I said, accept and embrace all communication, no matter how, in which form it comes in.
That makes total sense. I suppose coming up to this could be maybe our second last question. I think one of the questions that came in on the question box to me is, say if at home you're fully embracing AAC and you're doing your best, whatever that looks like, you're modeling, you're providing the device, you're encouraging, not prompting, you're just supporting and encouraging and empowering. Say then if you are bringing the device into, a fabulous school, incredibly busy autism class, and for whatever reason, maybe teachers, so incredibly busy, so talented, all of the positive things you'd love to have in a school is all happening there, but school are saying, look, we don't have any training in AAC, we don't know anything, we're really, really busy, and we're not really using it here. Or maybe school aren't telling you that, but you're noticing, the charge of the device coming home at 100%, the charger's here in the home. What should family do there to, really collaboratively work with school to see that this really is so important to us, and that it is a really valid way for our child to communicate? It's not if you'd like to, it's we have to. This is how our child can be. Is there any advice there, or would this be something that you might come across occasionally in your work?
It's definitely come across. I think again, I often think with most people it comes from a place of just overwhelmed. Like with parents, well, like I don't know what to do. I've not been given any training. I don't want to get it wrong. Almost people are worried about if they're not perfect at it, they shouldn't start. And I'm like, just start. Like you only get good at it by practicing. But I think the main thing I often say to parents and to schools, like when there's like, come together and think, okay, well, how can we make the devices available as the first port of call? Like the device, how can we make sure it's available for that child throughout their entire day? So if at the moment it's not leaving their bag, our first step is how can we make sure that's on their desk. If they go out to the yard, someone's wearing it, or if they go to lunch at a different table, focuses that as your main goal. I think if at home you've any examples of your child using the device, or the device bringing them joy, or them paying attention to you using the device, video can be really powerful to show school how it's being used or how the child's using it. It's not they have to be using it perfectly, but actually just any kind of any engagement or interest in it can be really powerful to kind of show school, look, this is what we're doing and this is what we're seeing at home. If you could do that, that would also be really helpful. I know that can be quite powerful, but if your child's not using it at all yet or showing any interest, which is totally normal, by the way, I think just start as the first point of call of have it available to them, and then pick maybe one thing that your child loves on the device, that they're really enjoying at home, that maybe if you're pressing on it, they're showing some enjoyment, or just that they love watching or engaging with, and say, look,
they might even just sit a little bit closer when you're doing it and may not even look at you looking at it. But you notice, just be observant and notice there's a little change in something. Yeah. Do you think then would even for school to even have a video, say if family are saying they do seem to like when I'm doing say if it was, it doesn't, we keep saying TD Snap, but there's many other fabulous AAC devices and AAC resources. We're just giving that as the example. But say if you had a little clip of something, say Max with the Mash and the Bear, that was the first spark that I saw where he was like, oh, okay. And with Connor, it was Oasis music. I had Wonderwall, and he was like, because I was trying to safely, because again, he did a little bit of trauma on his older device, just unrelated to school where he is now and all the things. But anyway, to get him to feel safe to try another device, like his old device, which I've obviously got a new iPad for him, but would say it's still being used. So there's not like now you can't, but we were showing him, we're trying to help him transfer across if he'd like to, but giving him the option. But it was all Oasis music. He loves Bon Jovi. He's really good taste. He also likes Richie Kavanagh, the Breakfast Roll song. I don't know where that came from. Wasn't from me, it was that. But again, that's on there. But the point is, we were safely showing him nice fun ways. So say if that was in a Max context, if I had say got a clip of Max with the mash and the bear saying, look, if all you did was once a day showing him that, well, obviously loads of times, but if you can only, from a capacity point of view, say his interactive play or free play time, could we maybe have it on the main board, on the, the interactive board, and then on the device, just model it? Could SNA, could teacher model it, just in that scenario? Do you think would that be maybe a good advice for what you've kind of recommended there?
Pick one thing to start with. I say have the device available, and then pick one thing to model that. Even if the child's never shown into the device, but that brings them joy in general, and model that, and then just see, and usually once like staff start to feel more confident, like with parents, or even like therapists as well, you start to use it more and it becomes easier, but it just does take time. I think it starts small, but I'd say a small step that's going to focus really on that the connection and joy rather than a compliance piece is so important. It's like, how can we build a relationship with the child in school with the device?
So we're looking at connection, not compliance. It's about where can we connect where the child can see and we can see. This is like a modem or like a medium for us all to connect with.
Building that relationship.
Building that bridge kind of.
Device. Absolutely.
Oh, that's amazing. I suppose as a final question then, and this is literally off the top of my head, so you wouldn't have even had a chance to think what I might ask, but I think if I was the Amanda of 10 years ago and I was nervous, say, about AAC, I've seen maybe it was even 2025 Amanda, and I'm thinking, gosh, I have a 15-year-old child, maybe an older person even in my life that has never used AAC. I'll specifically maybe look at the older, because I think in a really kind of poignant, maybe bittersweet way, for our younger generation, they have all these opportunities. Only for, I suppose, I self-funded the device for Connor all those years ago, self-funded the apps and all the things. That it wasn't available. I remember we applied for funding and they were like, it's not needed. And I'm like, it is so needed. But again, I funded and grannies, and this is way back when, where everything was even more, it's hard to believe though in this economy, but it was definitely more expensive than it is now. But anyway, if I was a parent today and I have, say, an adult or a teenager or an older child, and we've never gone down the route of AAC, and now we're thinking, is this for us? Or I'm very nervous. So we all know like if I was a parent now starting out, say if this was your kind of what you'd like them to know about why they should maybe consider trying, or why it's safe to try this now, or why it's okay to try AAC now at this for the older child, the teen, or the young adult in their lives that they support. Is something that you'd like them to know about AAC?
I think it's never too late. It's never too late to start. There's never a point where like, oh, we've missed it, we can't go back. Like, it's always there. Like, that individual will have been like learning language all of this time. And I think if they still have their access to language or like mouth words is unreliable, or they're non-speaking, or they just can't get all their ideas out, and you're like, as we maybe didn't have the options back then, is it too late to start now? It's not too late. Start. I think definitely, obviously, because the individuals are a lot older as well, we want to make sure that they have a voice in that process. So like, definitely letting them try different systems, whether if you're self-funding and you're going through kind of just exploring some of the free trials by yourself, or if you have a team who are like supporting you with an AAC assessment, but make sure the individual is really part of that assessment. Let them try. It's going to be their voice. Let them play around with different like voices on the different apps, try different maybe like modes. Like, I know some of the like teenagers like maybe using it on something small like an iPhone or an iPad mini, because it looks kind of maybe more accessible. So let them be part of that journey, but please start. Don't not start. It can only help, basically. Like, you can't.
And I suppose don't feel bad for what you didn't know or you didn't have access to. You could only do the best. And I think of that, like, say, 10 years ago or more, that I didn't go down. I just have a brain of like I used to learn about, the PODD books. I was reading about those back in those days. I used to follow, like, same as I do now. I'm very lucky got to follow you and all the other incredible SLTs that I follow. I would just be upset, I clearly still am, with communication and visual supports. Yeah. And I just think for the young Amanda, maybe not that young, it was only 10 years ago, but we'll say slightly younger Amanda, if I hadn't started then, I was only starting now. You can, as a parent, if you're listening, or as a teacher, or even for myself, you can only do the best that you can do when you can do it. You can't look back and say, oh God, 10 years ago I should have started, 20 years ago. Do the best that you can do now, and as you would say, keep that autistic person's voice central, and what they would like. Maybe they wouldn't like to use AAC, and that's okay too. Maybe they're happy as they are, and that's okay too, but it's still great to give them the opportunities to experience. Because again, if you think of that P for predictability for autistic people, it is a see the change. There is a change here. So we're asking them to, trust in this process of something very new, very different. And again, would you advise, Aoife, in that context, that we give them time to process, to slowly but surely decide, and not just take it as an immediate no? Because if somebody showed me something that I knew nothing about, and I felt, again, if I was a person that for whatever reason hadn't all of the available resources to me to fully advocate for myself all of this length of my life, and now you're saying, and this is obviously just a water bottle, if you're watching or listening to this in the podcast, it's just a cup for drinking water out of, but if you were to say that's what you have to use now and this is the only way, I'm going to be like, whoa, hold on now, this is a bit scary, I don't think so, I'm going to just refuse, and then that scary feeling will go. But if you approach it in a way that I'm, the incredible, don't mean myself personally, an incredible autistic person, you're here as the parent to support and empower, like gently, supportively show them, and as you would say, Aoife, model that this could be an option for them, but we're not pressurizing you, we're not taking over how you should communicate, we're trying to support you, but also as a parent reflectively know that you did the best that you could with the knowledge base and the resources that were available to you.
I think that's so important, because I think we all like do the best you can with the knowledge you have at the time. And I think like when there's so many things I've done in my career as a speech therapist that I now absolutely cringe at. Again, at the time, like I was trying to do the latest research, PECs being one of the things that I did. And like now I'm like, oh my God. But like we all, again, at the time, it was like the best research and it was the best option to do. So I think all you can do is like to kind of like, keep learning. And when you learn something different, then you can like put that learning into action. But as also the resources were not around for
No, they
families
weren't.
like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago. So
10 years ago, we had somebody come from the Central Remedial Clinic we had a lovely SLT through the HC at the time. Again, you don't really get access to even SLT anymore. If you do, I don't say you're one of the lucky. I'm so glad for anyone that gets access to supports. But they came, and like it was an unheard of thing that we had been very lucky to get somebody to come. Now we were so thankful, and it was incredible, two incredible professionals that came, and our SLT that was here in the West at the time. But it was unheard of. Everyone was like, well, how? I remember even wrote like a blog post because everyone's like, but how? And I'm like, well, if this is how we did it. Little did I know that, down the line there'd be an incredible SLT called Aoife Tierney from Sparking Speech that would come along and, really enlighten all of us. But I definitely think for parents, listen, you could only do the best that you could at the time. And if whether it's a younger child, an older child, a teen or an adult, where now you're like, gosh, maybe this is something we should even try. And again, there are some free AAC versions as well, or at least there was the last time I was.
there's free trials for most of the apps now. So if you have access to your own iPad, or if you can borrow an iPad from someone to see if like it's going to work for your teenager, young person, say if the mode they want to try, that's a great way of exploring, because these the trials last anywhere between 2 weeks and a month. So you can actually like take your time with it and like let them explore the app in their own time, as Amanda said, like, so see if it's something that they're interested in. If they want to try a different one, then you can try a different system. But there are Weave Chat is
I was thinking of that. That's one
that
is that still free, or
that's free. They've said it's always going to be free. So that's a robust
Amazing.
communication system, and that's free. And you can use that on iPads, on Kindle devices, Fire devices, on Android devices. So it's just kind of unheard of, because most apps are only available on iOS or Apple products. And so again, if you don't have, let's say, the means to like afford an app at the moment or a device,
That's incredibly generous
any
of
the
them as well, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing. Like it's just fantastic. And they do offer like some free training stuff as well, and they have some videos on their YouTube channel.
Oh
So
my
if you
gosh.
are, if you're starting out, there is somewhere you can start with it, but that's a great free robust AAC system. And I say you can use that for as long as you want. Now you can also think the symbols mightn't be like to everyone's taste, but again, the system itself is very robust and a great resource. And it's so fantastic that it's free and readily available on all the systems, because that is unheard of in any of the
Yeah.
AAC
So for
apps.
families that say for financial reasons may not be able to go, as I say, we self-funded way back when, but that was obviously way back when with grannies and granddads and everyone helping. Because back in those days, I would have been a carer, so it's not that I had,
Not always possible.
the
Yeah.
mystical and magical pot of gold. So if you are a carer listening, or a parent or an older person, say you could be a much older person that have an adult child, you're thinking maybe AAC. So there is that Weave Chat there, and again, I'll pop a link in the description of this podcast. So listen, I'm watching the time, Aoife. I've definitely taken way too much of your time. So listen, a huge thank you to your
Thank you so
incredible
much.
self. You said at the start it's an honor. It's actually an honor to have you on the podcast, because I often talk about you and a number of other incredible SLTs as like my go-tos, my absolute. Very few people and resources I recommend on Little Puddings, but the ones that I do, you can be absolutely positively sure they are incredible. So highly recommended is the incredible Aoife Tierney from Sparking Speech for all things speech and language. Also, if you're an SLT listening, you've actually have a lot of incredible resources for SLTs that might be listening in from all over the world. Do you have, I can't pronounce the product, is it
Bureau of
Born?
Speech.
I knew I couldn't say it properly. Do you want to just quickly, for any SLTs listening that might be interested, because I find all those resources quite fascinating as well. Do you want
Yeah,
to say anything about those?
I have a store on my website where I sell the Bureau of Speech products, which are kind of really diverse and inclusive speech
Yeah,
products.
gorgeous. They look
Maybe
beautiful
look
as well
around.
visually.
They're gorgeous. So kind of for a lot of speech sound work, a lot of around development of verbal dyspraxia. They also have new resources for selective mutism and kind of lots of they're constantly expanding their range, but and they're all available on my website. And I also do a course with Julie
I was
Holmes, who
just
you
about to
also
say,
had
yeah, I forgot
on.
to say that.
We've of course got Let's Communicate Together. So we've just finished our first cohort, and the next cohort starting in September, October time. And so that's a self-paced course with a community and some live calls. But the focus is all on getting started with AAC and Gestalt Language Processing as well.
Oh,
So
amazing.
that's
So
another.
that might be a great one for parents listening as well, say for either GLP, AAC, like getting on the journey. And is there like a parent community forum, say, within that, so they can meet
Community
other parents like
forum,
themselves?
yeah. And there's also monthly calls where you can put in your questions and have the
Amazing.
forum as well. And I'd say there's lots of like how-to videos and like handouts that come with the course as well. So it's a good place to get started if you're kind of
That's
trying to
incredible. I'm
find
going
your.
to actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to add that in as a link to this podcast, because I know there'll be many families like myself that mightn't have access, say, through the, for whatever reason, through supports here in the West or anywhere else in the country or abroad, in fact. So at least you have a support there. And again, you get, and I think that's really important for families on this journey, is having that community as well. So for families like myself, they're on this journey and they may feel like, I wish I could reach out to another parent. Like when I had Roseanne recently on the podcast, that made all the difference. I know to so many, that podcast got shared all over the place. And that's because
Oh,
families need to see other families just like themselves
so
really embracing
powerful.
AAC. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so powerful. But it's also so powerful to have advocates and specialists and experts just like yourself, Aoife, that really empower families to feel like they can do this and they can really help their autistic family members, or say other or otherwise neurodivergent family members, to really embrace AAC. So again, thanks for myself, and
Thank you so much for
really
having me on.
thanks
It's
from all
been
our listeners as
fab.
well, I'm sure, for being on. So thank you. I'll get off this now
Thank
and
you
we'll
so
be back
much.
again next week. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.